All right, let's talk about Gin. I have a lot of slides, so bear with me. This is a moving target, like the like the session you potentially saw in the morning from Chen and Stephanie. So I did change this presentation a lot this week. With every person I spoke to, I had to change slides. And there are still some slides which potentially are still outdated or already outdated while I'm speaking. So let's get into it. So my name is Sascha Eckenberger. I'm a staff product designer at GitLab. I'm the creator and maintainer of the Gin admin theme. And I will start as usual with my presentations about Gin with like an yearly update. So Gin is now the most installed admin theme for all Drupal 9, 10, and 11 combined. We now have over 57,000 sites out there in the wild using Gin, and this is like a 48% increase year over year. So you see there's a lot of momentum here. We did close over, or nearly 100 issues in the last 12 months. There were over 600 issues we fixed in the last 4 years, so that's quite a number. If you're still using Drupal 7, hands up. Okay, this might be for you. If you're not upgrading to Drupal 10 or 11, if you plan to go to Backdrop, I have good news for you because Gin is now also available for Backdrop. There was like a huge shout out to Larin. Is Larin in the room? Is Larin even here? No? Okay, big shout out. Larin from the Aiton design group did approach me like a while ago with this idea that they have some sites they actually move, towards Backdrop, and they want to have a seamless experience for all customers and using Gin. So we created like a port of Gin for Backdrop, and he's like the main maintainer of it. So that's a cool thing if you're moving that way. At DrupalCon that was online, I guess, right? Drupal Europe 2020 was COVID. Yeah. We actually presented that we did some studies, with a lot of Drupal users, and also like searching the internet about, what people think about Drupal. And the most answers were, does Drupal still exist? I last used it with Drupal 6 or 7, or people just said Drupal looks really outdated. It feels really outdated. So fast forward 4 years later, there was like a popular WordPress video coming out a couple of days ago. Maybe you have saw it. It made the rounds in the Drupal channels. So somebody got access to Drupal Starshot, the prototype, and did like a review of what they saw is currently happening in the Drupal world. And there were a lot of great quotes. I just took 2 of them. Somebody said, I wish WordPress would get a minimal UI similar to this. Another person said, Jesus, this admin UI makes WordPress look like garbage. And if I recall, I've never heard anybody talking about Drupal being the thing which is pretty and nice compared to other CMSs or other CMFs, right? So this really makes me proud. Everybody involved in all those admin UI initiatives we had in the last couple of years, started out with Christina, me, and others, designing Claro. We had a lot of things which were out of scope, so we moved on with creating Gin to actually try out these design principles. And now with moving towards Starshot and, the experience builder and all the other cool thing, what Chen, for example, and Stephanie showed this morning with the redesign process of the admin UI, even though it's a huge moving target, and I feel very sorry for these 2 individuals. But yeah, like the eagle has landed. We now opted to include Gin as default admin theme for Drupal Starshot or Drupal CMS. I still call it Starshot, sorry. And I think this is a huge milestone because, like a contrib theme taking over the UI of the default installation of Drupal. Even though we still don't know what the scope of changes will be for Gin, and I think neither does Christina know. But yeah, we recently added Gin as a track for Drupal Starshot because it gets included in Starshot, so that makes sense. I think the scope is still to be defined, like a lot of other things. But yeah, it makes me really excited about this. So let's talk about some new features we actually added in the last couple of months, because there were quite some changes we did. The first thing was we added support for course new navigation. Prior to that, we actually implemented a draft implementation of course new navigation. So you could already try it out before we actually moved that thing into core. So that was something we worked on. Then we, of course, it supports all the goodies you know from Gin, like accent colors, dark mode, high contrast mode, and so on, out of the box. We added a resizable sidebar. So there was feedback that sometimes you build a site where you have more complex content you wanna push into the sidebar. Now content editors actually can resize the sidebar and it actually gets stored. So the next time you load the page, you get exactly the size you want. That's something we added. We also added support for the installer, which will be a baby step for the installer we need for Starshot, but that wasn't like possible before. So that was something we added down the road. We shipped a vastly improved version of Project Browser. So there were layout changes, supporting for dark mode, for accent colors, all those things. We shipped them in Gin because we can iterate a bit faster. These changes are still due to be backported to Project Browser. So we will contribute these changes back to Project Browser that if you use Claro or other themes, they can also benefit of these changes. But this still, it was a bit hectic the last couple of weeks, so it didn't happen until now. And speaking of refactoring, we did a lot of refactoring behind the scenes. Accessibility issues got solved. We had some contrast issues with some some default colors we ship in Gin. So these are resolved now. We refactored a majority of our PHP code. A lot of JavaScript was rewritten, and there's still a ton of work to be done under the hood of Gin. And then last but not least, we added this sticky action buttons feature. I talked to Christina, looking at you, the other day, and we had this idea, or she had this idea that, this could be used everywhere in the UI. And I was like, oh yeah, that was something actually which blocked the stable release of Gin for a while because we wanted to do that. So I took the time to actually try to look into ways how to implement this, right? And you might be familiar with this if you have like a node edit form. You already have like the sticky action buttons on top. But if you actually enable this experimental feature, so it's opt-in, you get like the sticky action buttons on top on every single admin UI page. And it was, it was pretty quickly implemented. And I think that was the first time something really did blow up in Gin. So this happened. All right. You might ask, it's a simple task to, to move some buttons around in the UI, right? Well, let me talk a bit about that. There were some technical changes. So what happened is, this is a node edit form, can be any entity, just as a quick demonstration. This is the actual form, so like the HTML form element where like everything is within, right? This is technically also part of the form element. It's just absolute position, but it's still part of the form. But this is not part of the form. So these buttons live outside of the actual form. Now you might think, well, that's an easy thing because HTML supports that out of the box, because you can add like a form attribute. You can add form attributes to all input fields and buttons. So if you add them to input fields, they even get submitted even if these fields are outside of the form. If you add a button which has like the form attribute with like the ID of the form, you can submit the form even the button is not in the form. So there are ways, and this all works without any line of JavaScript, which is awesome. But it's Drupal. Problem number one was modules hook into form actions and can do wild things. It's totally normal that modules hook into form actions, right? And we should support like all the different ways you do that. But there were some wild things going on in some modules. Won't go into details, but there were some really weird things going on. The second problem was it's almost impossible to detect if like a form is actually displayed in a model or off-canvas dialog. You know, like if you look at the request wrapper format, you get like different types, like, you know, it reports as a model or as a dialog, or a normal HX request comes as an HX. But it seems that we still have some models which report back as HX, just as a normal HX request. So it's almost impossible to detect that. And why is it important? Because we don't want to have sticky action buttons in models, right? So that was another problem. And the third one was making sure that PHP unit tests will not fail. Because moving buttons out makes PHP unit tests just fail, because PHP unit doesn't see any form submit buttons, so you cannot test forms anymore because they're not there, they're somewhere else. We found some ways around that. We even created like a patch for core, which would be very easy to fix. But then, as you saw, there were like multiple issues surfacing, and every single day there came new and new issues, which wasn't a problem because it was still an opt-in experimental feature. So your default experience will not be broken by any means. But yeah, now we opted for a more clever approach to this. I won't go into details because we don't have the time, but if you're interested, you can actually go to this issue, drupal.org/project/gin/issue/ the number you see. We have a merge request, and we really need your help to get this tested, because this is crucial to a stable release that we do not break any forms in Drupal. Speaking of the elephant in the room, where is that damn stable release for Gin, right? We're now running on RC for more than a year, I guess. Maybe it's a bit more. And initially, I actually planned, I talked to Christina like 2 weeks before the conference that we would, you know, that we would present like, yay, it's here, it's now fixed, and I would just publish it before this presentation. But then Dries Node happened, and I talked to a lot of people this week, so I can report it's almost here now. We have some new requirements, so the final roadmap is now a professional roadmap because there are some things we just don't know. So one thing we know is the next target is a stable release. That's the most important thing we're aiming for. The question is if the sticky action buttons actually makes into the stable release, or if we just move all the code we just did out of it, make a stable release, and then move everything in again that we can do a feature release. That is a big question. Also, the scope for Starshot is, at least to me, pretty unknown. It's a moving target. We don't know what the requirements are and what we have to do. I guess we'll all figure out. But yeah, the important thing here is that we will do a stable release, and because of the lifetime of, like the Gin 3.0 release, we actually will move on to do just the 4.0 release. So 8.x 3.0 will be the last release of the 3x branch, and then we move on to 4.0 finally, because then we can do semantic versioning and we can actually ship every single patch as a minor release. We can do feature releases and so on, right? That was like blocked for a very long time. I would also like to announce that we added a new maintainer. So a friend of mine, Jürgen Haas, actually volunteered to become a maintainer of the Gin admin theme. And I think that adds a great new perspective, because I'm still a designer who do code, and adding like somebody which is like a Drupal expert actually makes really sense, especially for all those backend heavy things we do in Gin, which potentially an admin theme should not do in the first place. So he's best known for his work on the ECA module, on the BPMN, is that correct, module, and he's also the track lead for the privacy track for Drupal Starshot. So maybe... Thank you. So we will add more co-maintainers. So I'm in talks with a lot more people to actually spread the work so we can get things done faster in the future. And this will also be very relevant for Drupal Starshot, for Drupal CMS. We really need your help because we have around 30% of all open issues in Gin need a review. So they're blocked by community review. So we need help with, maintenance, with, reviewing code, that we actually can move on and merge these things into Gin and do like actually new releases. Christina and I will talk about the future of the admin Gin theme tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. We will have a buff, so everybody's welcome to join, where we have like a roundtable where we discuss things, where things are heading, and how Gin works potentially together with like the future of the admin UI and everything which comes from Starshot and around. Might be pretty interesting to see. And then we will also have Friday, a Gin table at the contribution room where we try to fix as many bugs as possible. And spoiler alert, my goal would be that we get this stable release out on Friday. All right. This all wouldn't be possible. I know this is the boring section, but for me personally, this is the most important one, because without the project sponsors, all this work wouldn't be possible at all, because I work at GitLab and I just have like limited time available for Drupal stuff nowadays. Also having like a 2.5-year-old kid at home, which prevents me on doing a lot of things. So thank you 1x Internet for being a Platinum sponsor for a very long time. Thank you Baddy for your trust and stepping in whenever we need more. Thank you Vardot for being a Gold sponsor. Thank you Material Plus and SpecB for being Silver sponsors. And thank you Unique, Zusha, I hope that was pronounced correctly, Kommunales Rechenzentrum Niederrhein, and Smile for being our bronze sponsors. And also thank you to all individual sponsors, like individuals who sponsor to get the work done, and also all former companies who sponsored like the work that we are where we are. Of course, as always, we're looking for new sponsors to be added, because if we spread the workload to multiple maintainers, we potentially also need more money to fund them. So thank you very much. This was a very quick one. You see the links down below.